Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's voter forum for the candidates for the City of the Piedmont City Council race. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I want to welcome you all. I'm Nancy Beninati, and I'm very excited to be moderating this event for our community this evening. I will welcome and introduce those candidates for City Council. We have this evening Betsy Smegal Andersen, Sunny Bostrom-Fleming, Jennifer Long, Tom Ramsey, and Jeanne Solnordal. We have one of our candidates, Bridget McInerney Harris, will not be here tonight, but she has prepared an opening statement that I will read to everyone later. I want to welcome those candidates that are here, and I want to thank you for joining us this evening. I would next like to present a little background information about the Office for City Council before we begin. The Piedmont City Council's positions are elected volunteers, and Piedmont holds staggered elections for the 4-year terms. This year, there are 3 open City Council positions, which means that you can cast your ballot for 3 of the 6 candidates here this evening. I will have more information about when and where to cast your ballot at the end of tonight's program. The League is a nonpartisan organization, but we do take positions on various issues. However, we do not endorse or oppose candidates, and tonight's forum is part of our education for the public about the candidates running for office here in Piedmont. The League is here to help you make a smart choice when you vote. We strive to make this a fair and balanced process, which is why we solicited the community to send us questions for the candidates in advance of tonight's forum. Those questions have been sorted by a team of League leaders to avoid duplicate questions and to select those questions that are most important to the community. We will not be taking questions during the forum, and so you'll notice that the Q&A and chat features have been turned off to minimize distraction. I want to also remind the candidates of a few of the ground rules and also provide this for those who are watching tonight. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. To keep the discussion flowing, each candidate will be expected to keep answers to 1.5 minutes for our Q&A portion. There will be a timer, a clock that everyone can see. And in order to be fair to everyone, we ask that the candidates wrap up their comments, or I will need to cut you off if you're going a little too long. So we'll switch up the order so that each candidate has a chance to answer the questions first. So earlier, I randomly selected the order that the candidates will be answering the questions, and I have let them know that order. At the end of the Q&A section, each candidate will have 1 minute to provide a closing statement. So let's begin. First up is Jennifer.
Thank you to the League for hosting tonight's candidate forum. Hello to my fellow candidates and to the community members tuning in tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with voters and to hopefully give them some insight into who I am, what I believe in, and how I would continue to work as a council member. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and graduated from Quaker High School. I continued my education at a small women's liberal arts college in New York, and then went on to obtain my law degree from a historically Black university where I met my husband. We are a biracial family with 2 young men, a college freshman and a sophomore in high school. I was appointed to council in February of this year. My decision to run for election is grounded in my strong desire to continue to collaborate with my colleagues, staff, and the community, and to enhance what I love about this community. Its tree-lined streets, excellent public services, and community members, to name a few. Through my service, I want to focus on bringing Piedmont's infrastructure projects to fruition in a fiscally responsible way and in keeping with the unique characteristics of our community. I'd like to continue to enhance our public services, communications, and community engagement, and to further create a community that is known for its inclusion and welcoming community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next up is Sunny.
My name is Sunny. I would like to start by apologizing to everyone in the world, living and dead, that has ever suffered at the hands of educated people that knew better and that subjected them to lifetimes of suffering, generation after generation. Apologies aren't enough without behavioral changes. The greatest change that can come about somebody to own their own house. There are generally two kinds of people in the whole world, not the categories you think of, but people that own their own little place, however humble, and people that are renters. It's a divide as great as between serfs and landlords. If you can be kicked out of your little home at the whim of someone else in 30 days or 90, it brings great stress to every aspect of your family, and there isn't any generational wealth if you don't own something. This business about bringing 600 units to our city, they're rental units. They won't help anybody get generational wealth. And it's really not about helping the poor, because it would be better to have 1,800 units somewhere for 350,000, even if they were very small, than have $600 million units for people in Piedmont.
Thank you so much. Tom, you are next.
Good evening. Thanks, Nancy, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this candidates forum, and thanks to our Piedmont neighbors for taking the time to log in. I'm Tom Ramsey, and like many of our neighbors, our family moved to Piedmont 25 years ago to send our two daughters to our great public schools. We had a 4-year-old, a 4-month-old, and a house that needed some work. Fast forward to today, and our daughters have graduated Piedmont High School, college, and are both independent, strong young women, but the house could still use some work. We came for the schools, we stayed for the friendships, location, and the great services delivered by the city. We have a good team on City Council right now, and I'll bring a different kind of experience to add to the mix of talent. I'm an architect. I've been helping people plan, design, and build in the Bay Area for over 30 years. And for the past 7 years, I have served on Piedmont's Planning Commission. I've also served on our School Seismic Advisory Committee, our Design Guidelines Committee, Measure A1 Committee, and for over a decade, I've worked with Piedmont's Community Service Crew, working with Piedmont High School students as we repair housing for seniors in nearby neighborhoods. I like to solve problems, and I've spent my career building and leading teams. I want to put that experience to work for Piedmont. I want to help Piedmont navigate the state housing mandates. I want to do it in a way that is transparent and keep as much local control as possible. We can control what is built, where it's built, and what it looks like. I also think it's time to address the conditions of our police and fire stations in City Hall. Our Civic Center buildings need to be made safe so our first responders can continue to make us safe. And thanks to so many people around town, we'll soon be constructing a new pool. I want to help us get that project over the finish line. With this work in front of us, we have to remind ourselves that Piedmont is a small town with limited financial resources and a wonderful staff that we already keep very busy. Our approach should be to budget conservatively for these challenges and invest wisely in our public health and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Jeanne. Jeanne, I believe you're muted.
Okay, is that better? Okay, my name is Jeanne Solnordal. I've lived in Piedmont since 2002. We moved here to take advantage of the public schools and the safety of the community as we raised our children. I assume that's why most people do move to Piedmont. I have a Juris Doctorate degree in landlord-tenant law. I also have practiced juvenile defense law. I've taught tax law for 18 years for the IRS, and I've been self-employed for 23 years as a broker practicing in property management. My primary concern is for all the new housing that we're going to have to find a way to accommodate in the city. AB 686 is giving us our RENER allocations of 587 units. SB 9 and SB 10 went into effect in January. They also are requiring that, saying that we can split lots and we can put additional housing on the split lots. And SB 10 is actually saying that we can add 10 additional units on a lot should you be within 1/5 of a mile of a transit stop. A New York Times article dated May 4th states that the state of California is actually in a decline in its population, or at least stagnant. And so this is all coming at a time when we don't even have an increase in population. So my question is, do we really need density housing at this time? And at the end of the day, the developers are the ones that get rich, and the taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill for the additional public services that our community is going to need. Thank you.
Thank you. Betsy?
Good evening. My name is Betsy Smegal Andersen, and I want to thank the Piedmont League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I have proudly served on our city council for the past 5 years. I was appointed in 2017 and elected in 2018. I grew up in Piedmont. My husband and I have raised our daughters here. Over the course of my 4 decades as a local resident, I have met a lot of other Piedmonters. And if you know me and you've met me, or you've watched me in a meeting or on Zoom or on KCOM, you know that I am committed to the success of our community. I was looking at my remarks from this forum 4 years ago, and even though a lot has changed in the world since then, my top 3 priorities have not changed: community building, public safety, and city facilities. I am happy to report progress on all 3. First, we are a community that wants to spend time together. Even during social distancing, neighbors and friends found safe and creative ways to connect. Our city parks have never been so well utilized. City services and programming, including schoolmates, hardly skipped a beat. And who could have predicted pickleball? Second, we are now in the process of renovating the heart of our public safety system, and that is our police and fire dispatch center. While there is still much work to be done on the public safety buildings themselves, bringing our dispatch center up to current standards is a critical first step. Third, even though during a global pandemic, the community came together and passed Measure UU to rebuild our beloved community pool. Hundreds of Piedmonters have been involved in the planning process, and it won't be long now before we have an amazing public facility for all ages and stages to gather, exercise, and play. These are just a few of the things that we have accomplished in these past 5 years. Looking ahead, I am committed to fiscal responsibility, improving community engagement, and finding creative solutions to the challenges we face. For the future of Piedmont, I am motivated and committed to collaborating with you in support of the place we all call home. Thank you.
Thank you all. As I mentioned, I will be reading the statement for Bridget Harris. Unfortunately, I have a prior commitment in Los Angeles, and I'm sorry to miss this Zoom meeting. My family has lived in Piedmont since 1986, where we raised our 4 children. I have practiced law continuously since graduation and work in the tax department of a large firm in San Francisco. I am involved in several nonprofit organizations, usually on the audit and finance committees. Piedmont is a wonderful city, offering excellent schools, parks, and safety services. I am running for City Council to bring pragmatic solutions to 3 issues facing Piedmont today. First, we must fully explore the draft housing element plan, the proposed locations for the multi-unit housing, and the impact the plan will have on the traffic, safety, and environment in the city. Further, in accordance with our city charter, any plan that results in a rezone must be voted on by citizens of Piedmont. Allowing multifamily units in Zone B, which is designated as park and public land, is a de facto rezone to Zone C, which is zoned for multifamily units. A rezone requires a vote to be approved. Let us vote on the options. My second priority is to move forward on the necessary remodeling of our police, fire, and city hall facilities. They must be brought up to code and improved to ensure that our public services are maintained at the highest level. Several years ago, we were close to a solution with the general public bond. However, Measure UU and the pandemic derailed the project. It is past time for these renovations, so let's make it happen. And finally, we need to make sure that our police have the necessary equipment and staff to continue to provide excellent services. Many cities have experienced a rise in crime. We must be both progressive and proactive in making our residents safe. Thank you. And now we will turn to our question and answer section. Sunny is going first on this one. And my first question to you is, and every candidate will answer the same question. The city is proposing to renovate or replace Piedmont's government and public safety facilities. What is your position on this and why? And in your answer, please explain the issues surrounding the cost and potential taxes of such a project.
I think for the safety of our city and our schools, it's vital that our police department and our fire department stays exactly where it is and isn't moved to any other location that is less central. I think we are all feeling that we want our police and our fire departments to have the most up-to-date equipment for serving the community and also for making the lives of our first responders safer. I would propose, among the other thoughts for improvement, that we get automobiles that are used, armored cars, and also that citizens who are now noticing how dangerous it's getting to drive on the highways consider buying them themselves. They cost $20,000 each. They look beautiful. And if you Google used armored civilian cars, you can see how you can get one for yourself. You can get 3 for the price of a used Tesla for your whole family, and then drive down the street and feel much safer. And our police staff deserve to have vehicles whereby they cannot be shot from outsiders who wish them ill.
Thank you. Tom, same question.
You know, we have great public services in Piedmont with dedicated staff and first responders, and our infrastructure and facilities do not reflect the same quality. Our police and fire stations do not meet minimum code requirements for essential facilities. And according to a 2020 preliminary report, apparatus and personnel could actually be trapped inside a fire station following an earthquake. We have a beautiful fire station and city hall, but it was built in 1910. You know, I don't think the word seismic upgrade or seismic, even existed back then. I think we have some work to do. We have to update our civic center plan to look at that area in its entirety. We have to evaluate the existing conditions, the options, cost, and phasing. Some very preliminary estimates suggest that rebuilding the fire station might be less expensive than remodeling. I think we need to vet that assumption with the current market. I think we need to evaluate efficiencies by combining redundant support facilities among all those parts and pieces. We need to work with the finance committee again to determine appropriate funding options, and even evaluate a public-private partnership options that other cities have done. You know, the whole thing up there is going to be a chess game. We're going to have to keep our services intact and operational while we plan for rebuilding. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Jeanne, you're next.
I think our public services buildings are very important. And unfortunately, they are old buildings and they are in need of repair. I think the biggest problem, the largest problem would be the dispatch center at the city police department. That's kind of the heart of where everything kind of happens. You have to have a dispatch center to get calls and send the appropriate responders out. I understand that there has been a request by Chief Bowers for some funds to do that, and the City Council has approved some funds to do a design review. And I think that was a very good decision by the City Council. And I even think, and I can't remember where they said the funds might be able to come from, but I think they've even identified a place where the funds might be able to come from in order to do the renovations. I think that's a very good plan, and we should consider moving forward with that. And I'm a little short on time. I still have some time, but those are my feelings.
Great, thank you so much. Betsy?
Yes, thank you. It's a great question. I don't have a ton to add to what Tom has already said with respect to the state of our police and fire. I think everyone appreciates how quaint our downtown is, but I would welcome folks to dig a little deeper and tour the fire and police departments when we do have those tours, hopefully upcoming, so you can actually see where the men and women of our departments work. And I think it would be very eye-opening for the public. I don't know that anyone has addressed the taxes question, which is where funding could come from. I appreciate that Tom mentioned a public-private partnership. I think we're always looking for public-private partnerships, kind of in everything we do for the city of Piedmont. But I do anticipate that we are not only going to be involving the community in the discussion of what we should do with that space to make it safe and workable for the workers and for us who receive those services, but also how we're going to fund it. So I don't believe any decisions have been made at this point in time. And again, I welcome everyone listening to be involved in this process, as we would very much like to keep our 4-minute or below response time. I think that's incredible. I know a lot of people, the old adage is people move here for the schools and stay for the police and fire, and we want to make sure that that continues. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Thank you. I think the responses thus far illuminate that the need for the city to address this issue. The dispatch center is underway. We recognize that there's going to be a great deal of planning that will go into the renovation of City Hall and the public safety services buildings. So we are excited to get that piece of it taken care of. And again, as Tom and Betsy and Jeanne and all the candidates have discussed, this will be something that will require a great deal of public input. It will be a chess piece. And as we learn the scope of the project, in addition to financing, one of the things we really have to dig into is what is the exact scope of the project? Is it a new build? Is it just simply modernizing the buildings? So I think there's a lot of work to be done, but thankfully we have some of the groundwork laid out. So thank you.
Thank you all. Our next question is for Tom. Is the city of Piedmont doing a good job in meeting the mandate for the regional housing needs allocation? And what would you do if elected on that plan?
Excellent question. And it was, are we doing a good job? So the city of Piedmont submits a housing element to the state of California every 8 years since it was required by state law in 1969. But this time, all the jurisdictions throughout California have been hit with crazy increases in housing targets mandated by the state. I mean, Albany has twice our number, Emeryville has 3 times our number. I think the layout that where we are right now in the draft housing element, where we have identified areas along Grand Avenue, commercial areas along Highland, and city-owned land north of Moraga. I also agree with the city council's comments on the most recent, where we remove some of the housing at in city center down to Grand, and also remove the tennis courts in City Hall. But it's a complicated issue. A friend of mine said that one way to talk about this is to talk about it as if it was a term paper, to get our housing element in on time. And I'm running out of time myself, so I hope there's another housing question so I can finish that thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeanne, you're next.
Yes, the regional housing arena did allocate 587 units for us to locate spaces for. We have several options on where to put those units. It is a difficult decision. I've watched the city council struggle with this and go back and forth, listening to the public, and I do appreciate all the input they have allowed the public to have. It's going to be difficult trying to figure out where to put these units. I personally think that our arena allocation was much too high. I probably would have encouraged an appeal to that number to ABAG, but we didn't, and the deadline for that has passed. The one thing that I would definitely not advocate for is for us to put high density housing in the city center. It's already very unsafe. We already have a safety issue with our children coming and going from school. And so to add additional housing in this area would further increase the danger of traffic and children and so forth. So I would like, I'm glad that they're reallocating those units, exactly where we're going to put them. My solution is maybe higher buildings on Grand.
Thank you. Betsy.
Thank you so much. So I think it's really important for people to understand that appealing the allocation, the RENA allocation, would have been an appeal to to the regional governments. And so the same group that gave us the number would have had to say, oops, we made a mistake, we should reduce your number. And then someone else in our region would have had to take that reduction. So I just want people to know that of all the appeals that were done, 27 of them, 26 of them were rejected, and only 1 was accepted because they got the boundaries wrong of the city. That's it. So an appeal would have been a waste of taxpayer money. And as a fiduciary, I'm not interested in wasting taxpayer money. So I do want to also talk about the fact, and I wasn't clear from the question if it's our current housing element or our prior housing element, but our 5th cycle, which we're wrapping up right now, we have hit it out of the park. Our allocation was 60 units. We have permits for 96 units. So we should be patting ourselves on the back. The state of California should be doing handstand because we have vastly surpassed our numbers. And the reason for that is accessory dwelling units. We are doing a really, really good job building accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. And I would expect that trend to continue. I think one of the frustrating things for the 6th cycle is we're really capped by the state to a formula of how many ADUs we can anticipate. And I think we're going to blow past that cap and continue to do a great job in that front. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Thank you. I do think that the city has done a really good job on managing the state mandated housing RENA number. I think that they have thoughtfully considered from the beginning what risk would be entailed in the city appealing. The assessment was made that we would be fined and that we would lose local control. And that for a city that values its aesthetics and the ability to determine how things look and function, that was a high priority. The next part of that process involved, where are we going to plan for these housing units? And our staff has really worked diligently to take the input from the community to figure out places that will work for the way that Piedmont functions. And I think they've really done an outstanding job. As council members, we will continue to look carefully at the final submission for the draft, but we know this is an iterative process. We will get feedback from the state, and we will continue to refine this until we have a housing element that is accepted, and then we will move on to the next phase.
Thank you. Same question to you, Sunny.
In general, I think it's going to make money for developers and a few people. I've had somebody offer me $1.5 million more than my house is worth because it's on a corner and has a guest house, because they think they'll be able to put a 10-plex there. Every time we add a new fire department member of the staff or police department, there's probably between around $300,000 for pensions and salaries for individual ones. Dumping 1,000 new people on us and their automobiles is the same as telling Oakland that they're going to get 45,000 new citizens that they can have the pleasure of educating and housing and policing especially. So I think we should look at this and see that this doesn't happen. A town full of lawyers doesn't have to roll over like a puppy hoping for a tummy rub. Got the money to finance some legal strategies here, and enough brains, you could start 10 new law schools just with the people we've got in central Piedmont. We're not some tiny little frightened town that doesn't know which way is up legally. I think that they shouldn't take any land at all without requesting the permission of the taxpayers. I think ADUs are a good idea anyway. You could spend $50,000 and get $2,500 a month on a simple little place behind your house. I think if we encourage that, we'd have a lot of people volunteering to do that, stretch them here to Walla Walla voluntarily. But that this thing should be fought tooth and nail.
Thank you. The next question is for Jeanne. In August of 2020, the City Council passed Resolution 60-2020, which commits the city to, among other things, to review and revise its policies, procedures, and ordinance through an anti-racism lens. What specific steps will you take, if elected, to ensure that this is achieved?
Racism should not be allowed anywhere. And it's important for the citizens of Piedmont to be fully aware of this. And I think the education begins in the schools and with the parents. When my children went through school, they were still children that were painting swastikas on the sides of the school buildings. We simply did not accept that. We located a child that did that, and it was corrected. I haven't seen anything like that happen recently, but we should all be aware, and I think the education starts in the school system. It used to be, I think the slogan was, be a stand-up person when my children were going through school. I'm not exactly sure what the slogan is today that they're using, but racism has no place anywhere, especially in Piedmont. And I know that we have that perception as being racist, but I don't believe we are. And I think that that was just kind of proven through the Texas study of the police department. So I don't think we really have a lot of biases, but I think if we educate our school children that this is inappropriate behavior, that we can make great strides in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Betsy, same question.
Yes, I actually agree with Jeanne that I do think educating kids in schools is really important. And I also think that acknowledging the history of what has happened in Piedmont and in the Oakland Hills and in neighborhoods up and down the state of California with restrictive housing covenants, it is really important that we appreciate this history. And I think, you know, this topic is a very sensitive one. It brings up all sorts of feelings for folks. Everyone has their own lived experience. But I think the more we can talk about it as a community, the better off we are all going to be. And, you know, one thing I might add is that what motivates me to do this is all of you. I mean, it are the residents of Piedmont. I love hearing diverse viewpoints, whether I agree with viewpoints or not. I love hearing everybody's thoughts and ideas and creativity, and then trying to find, you know, the best path forward that we can find. So I am truly committed to doing what we can to increase the welcoming atmosphere of Piedmont. I think we've had some pretty terrific public events recently. I'd like to see more public events that are really open and welcoming to our new families and to everyone. I think the pool is going to be a welcoming place for everyone to gather and be together. So I am really excited for the future of Piedmont, and I am delighted to be working on these issues together with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer, same question.
Thank you. Piedmont is a dynamic community with many facets to it, and yet it's often only described as unwelcoming to those who are not white or wealthy. And so that resolution was adopted after the murder of George Floyd. And it was an acknowledgement that not only in Piedmont, but then in the country, that there has been a history that the country is trying to reckon with and repair. I think that the city of Piedmont has leaned into that. The staff has undertaken in all of its department a review of the history of Piedmont and how it is impacting decisions that are made today. That process will continue. We need to absolutely create opportunities for our community to come together and to be able to discuss issues of race and class and gender. I am privileged to be sitting as a city council member, the first Black city council member. And I was recently at a League of California Cities, and there were many firsts. And I think that first represents a change and an acknowledgement. And I'm looking forward to being part of that change and acknowledgement here in Piedmont.
Thank you so much. And Sunny, same question.
Our city is approximately 1/4 minority, between 1/4 and 1/3. And in another 27 years, the whites will be in the minority. The wealthiest people in our city are Asian citizens. A lot of people just think that it's nothing but a bunch of white people up here, and that's simply not correct. I think it helps to introduce this fact to people, to let them know progress is being made. When I went to Piedmont High School, there were no Black children in my class that year. With the year next to me, there was one young Black man, and I suggested to him that he might even run for the presidency of the city council, and he won. He later became a Rhodes Scholar, and he was a superb example of dedication. I think we could take Oakland Avenue, which goes into Oakland, and change the name of it, for example, to George Floyd Drive. Floyd Drive. The first person to be the head of a major city symphony was in Oakland, and he drowned because a lot of Black people haven't had the opportunity to learn how to swim. We have a new swimming pool. I'm trying to start a whole swimming program, which will teach all American children how to swim as they learn in other countries. And we won't have this tragedy every year of watching our brothers and sisters drown because they didn't have swimming lessons as children. While we're at it,
Thank you,
with
Sunny.
manners, can I just finish one more sentence?
Well,
When
your
we're
time
talking over
is
the
up.
N word,
I'm
but we
sorry.
should also say we don't want to hear the B word or the C word or any of these other degrading words that are commonly used, because as it says in the Bible, there are about 35 things that happen that are evil from the mouth and the words that people choose and use. And but if you wait till the children get to school to learn to be decent sorts, it's almost too late. You've got to work on them in the home and reinforce it with the school too.
Okay, thank you, Sunny. Please, just as a reminder to stick to the 1.5 minute time. If I ask you to wrap up your comments, please do so out of respect for your fellow candidates.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, same question.
So this is one topic where I think there's strong universal agreement. Racism just has no place in Piedmont. And I agree with Betsy. We do need to own our collective history of redlining. And I think we can also we can lean on our local homegrown community groups, to do for assistance, facilitation, outreach. I think the city also started because of that some anti-racism training for council members. I would support even expanding that to some commission members. They are frontline with people in the community. I think that would be helpful. And I think we can also look at our housing element too as an opportunity to make as many of the new residences as possible available to a wide variety of tenants. So there's a lot of opportunities here. I'll see my face.
Thank you. Our next question is for Betsy. What will you do to ensure that the city meets its goals set forth in Piedmont's Climate Action Plan 2.0? And as part of your response, please identify any areas that you believe could be improved upon in that plan.
That is a very meaty question, and I only have 82 seconds now. I am super proud of all the things that the City Council has accomplished in my 5 years. And perhaps most importantly, we hired a sustainability program manager, Alyssa Dykman. And I'm not just saying that because she went to Duke, but of course that helps. But she is helping our council and city staff consider all decisions through an environmental lens and really keeping climate change front and center in all of the decisions that we make. She is also helping to create more information and more opportunities for members of our public to get information about how to make more climate-friendly choices. Looking ahead, the City of Piedmont is currently working with East Bay Community Energy and PG&E to install 4 fast electric vehicle chargers in the city center. Piedmont's sustainability manager, that's a mouthful, is also working with all of our departments on a plan to transition our city fleet of vehicles to electric vehicles. We are always looking for opportunities and funding to implement climate-friendly improvements, including the addition of bike racks, water bottle filling stations, and the creation of more green infrastructure. So if reelected, I will obviously continue to work towards Piedmont's Climate Action Plan. But in order to succeed, we really need Piedmont residents to step up and make climate-friendly choices for both big ticket items, EVs, home appliances, and also smaller daily decisions, walking or biking to school, bundling Amazon deliveries, things like that. So it's going to take all of us.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Thank you. Climate change is one of the biggest threats to our health and environment. We all experience it with the wildfires, blackouts, and it's something the city has absolutely been committed to. The electrification of the pool was a big step in the right direction for the city's commitment to climate, its climate action plan. But as Betsy said, what I would really like to lean into, if elected, is how do we make climate-friendly choices more accessible to our community members? And as she indicated, Alyssa Dykeman has been working on it. The city has recently hired a communication director that I think will be instrumental in laying out information for our residents that will be helpful when they're remodeling, when they're doing new builds, that will make climate choices much easier and much more affordable, because there are many obstacles, perceived and real, that stop people from making climate choices that would be beneficial to us all. So unpacking that would be at the top of my list.
Thank you. Sunny, you're next.
Sunny, you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted, and I was trying to unmute you, but I can't seem to do that.
One of the greatest things that can improve things for the whole world is vegetarianism. The planet can take care of feeding 20 times as many people as we have now that are vegetarians as are meat eaters. People who haven't tried it don't know how to do it, but that's okay. That can be learned. I'm a vegetarian myself, and I'm almost 80 years old. I'm blessed with very good health, and I attribute a lot of it to being a vegetarian. But in our heart of hearts, as with slavery, even when it was legal, there's a little piece of it that knows that there's evil going on there. How could you not when you see children and mothers separated and sold off? And I've been to animal auctions where there's that same terrible rhythm of the voice of the auctioneer that you know was the same type of chant, is what it's called, that went with the slave trade. Animals love their children, they love their life, they like fresh air, they don't like being caged up or hauled off in trains and butchered. And you feel better when you stop doing that. And anything that you don't take your children to see is often not a good thing to see. Nobody takes their child to a slaughterhouse on visitation day. They want Disneyland. So consider vegetarianism and the effect it has.
Thank you so much. Tom?
You know, I'm very proud to live in a town that's a leader in sustainability best practices, award-winning leader, awards from state and recognized, actually internationally too. And I'll continue that. I'm very proud of that, and I think that needs to be communicated more. I don't know if anybody knows that enough, but it's something really to be proud of. You know, our city facilities reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 12% in the 2010 to 19, and overall, I think it's about 30%. That's great news. But I think the next 12 and 30% reduction are going to be more difficult. So I support Piedmont's commitment for the new community pool as an all-electric facility. Yeah, I support the efforts to explore funding options too, you know, through grants or no interest loans through EPCE. I also support, you know, the adoption of REACH codes for existing facilities, which is kind of a big deal in code world, to go back and actually have codes for existing facilities for upgrades. But I think we need to look for ways to incentivize residents for conversion to electric services. I know there's a pilot rebate program going on, but I think we need to talk about maybe more carrots to give to encourage people, get that message out there, because, you know, we're such a, 3 seconds, dang, okay. Anyways, a lot of good stuff, very proud. Still got work to do. Thank you. I gotta watch the clock.
I appreciate that, though. Jeanne?
Yeah, my understanding is that we're having a little bit of a trouble achieving our goals for the 2.0 climate action plan. And so a couple of things that have come to my mind that we could do is, as Tom mentioned, incentives. I mean, if you want somebody to convert from an electric water heater from a gas to an electric water heater, one, you're going to have to tell them the process of how to do it and possibly give them some permit fee incentives. I mean, why, if they're complying with our REACH codes and we need them to comply with our REACH codes, a good incentive would be to make the permit process very easy and to give them a break on the permit fee. The other things that I see that we, aside from electricity, because, you know, electricity, people aren't eager to always convert to electricity when we have these blackouts. And so they keep that in mind too when they're making that decision. But one thing I think we can do is our water conservation. Every day when I go for walks, I see water running down the streets, which means a lot of people's irrigation systems are leaking. And that's to be expected. They get old, they crack, they leak. And so maybe we could put some kind of program in place to help homeowners identify that their sprinklers, their landscaping is leaking, and maybe we can help them with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next question is for you, Jennifer. What challenges do you see facing Piedmont in the next 4 years, and how would you address those challenges you identify?
I think the next 4 years are filled with exciting projects that will present their own unique challenges. So bringing the pool to fruition, implementing the policies that will finally be approved in the housing draft, the evaluation of city services and the civic center infrastructure projects. All of those things will require a very delicate balancing of values. You know, we first must do this in a fiscally responsible way. We'll have to do these things that meet aesthetic desires of our community, and we'll have to do these in a timely way. And so I think that these challenges are things that we will, as a council, work together and work with staff to ensure that we do our homework before things get underway. And we will work with our budget department to make sure we can bring these things in a fiscally responsible way.
Thank you. Sunny, same question.
Oh, I think we will have more crime. 75% of murderers in Oakland and in America get less than 13 years in prison. And after they're out, usually within 2 years, there's a recidivism factor. School shootings are an issue. We've had 2 incidents where, fortunately, our aware, socially aware young people were able to get attention to the 2 individuals, not working in tandem, 2 separate ones, so that it was nipped in the bud, and also a bomb which did not go off, fortunately. For this, after what we learned from Uvalde, I'm sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly, it's necessary to have cameras in the classrooms, the hallways, libraries, areas, sports, which can lead to good things. It'll limit bullying, which often leads shooters to act out. You'll be able to say, so-and-so came up and hit me in the face and have proof. It'll help the teachers. 60,000 a year in America are raped, killed, or beaten, or 60,000 are hospitalized in America, 60,000 teachers. And 300,000 don't have to be hospitalized but are beaten. It will cut down on that when there is a witness in every classroom.
Thank
We
you.
might consider this.
Tom?
The three challenges we see in the next several years, I mean, that's a big part of the reason I'm running here. The three challenges that I see, because they're all kind of in my wheelhouse. We have the housing. We got to get the housing element submitted on time, and then after that, we have a 2 to 3 year project to really dig into the weeds, to update our design guidelines and to really put the protections in that we need to try to keep local control over the state mandates. I've been working on that with the Planning Commission. I spent a year with the committee updating our design guidelines. So I'm ready to take that on. For the facilities work too, what we were all talking about the upgrades of our civic center too. I've been working on upgrades like that, and those planning for businesses, for tech companies, for universities, a good part of my career, that whole kind of in the weeds planning and phasing, of a facility like that. It's something that really interests me. And then finally, the pool, and the pool's at the opposite end of those two, right? We're ready to just push that over the finish line. We got some, we got to get over the finance hurdles here too. But a lot of the hard work has been done. I'm ready to help that over the finish line. So
Thank you.
did better on time this time. That's good. Okay. All right.
Jeanne?
I think Tom just stole all my answers. So, but yeah, my first one is, of course, we've got the housing challenge, and that's the first one that we've got to deal with immediately. And it's going to take time for us to put this into place and make our residents happy. So that is a big hurdle. And then, there's, and even if we put it into place, then we're going to have new taxes we're going to have to allocate, because the public services are going to increase, and we're going to have to pass that cost on off to our taxpayers. The next is the infrastructure. We do have old buildings. That's why Piedmont is always building, is because we have old, beautiful buildings and they need upgrades. And that's true of our city center. And so we're going to have to find a way to finance that and to decide which place needs fixing the most. And third, we've got the pool. So we're well into the way, we're accepting bids now for the pool, but we should try to move quickly on that process so that inflation doesn't get the better of us, because it already has. And we should not be struggling to find ways to pay for this project. So we should try to get these things moving along, because inflation is not going to reverse. It's just going to get worse. Thank you.
Thank you. And Betsy?
Yeah, so I feel kind of bad about this, but I'm actually going to add to the list of things that the prior candidates have mentioned, because I think everything they mentioned has been important, but I want to take a step back and talk about our core city services. So in 2 years, we're going to have a renewal of our city parcel tax, and this is a municipal services tax that goes to fund our police and our fire departments. And these are for salaries. These are for pensions. These are for the sort of nuts and bolts of keeping our police and fire together. So before we talk about, renovations, which I think we need to, and before we talk about the other steps that others have mentioned, we have to make sure we have the dollars to pay the salaries. And then the second thing I want to mention is is pensions, which is such a, sort of fun topic to talk about, but we are really heading into a period now where we are going to be squeezed on pensions. So I just want to reassure folks that the council over the past 5 years, starting under Bob McBain, we have been stocking money away in a pension rate stabilization fund to make up the shortfall that we are going to have as soon as next year. this is for city pensions. So this is really important. It is not exciting, but it has to get done. And then the final thing I just wanted to mention is employee hiring and retention. We are about to begin the process of looking and hiring a new city administrator, and that is going to be a very important thing to accomplish in the next 4 years. Hopefully sooner than that.
Thank you. The next question goes to you, Sunny. What can or should the city council do with respect to state and national issues such as gun control, immigration, abortion, and voting rights?
Could you list the 4 things, the main things that they should do regarding what were you saying?
Those are just some examples, but the question is, what can or should the city council do with respect to state and national issues such as gun control, immigration, abortion, and voting rights?
Well, you're going to have a fit when I say this, but here goes. Seeing how close we came to the blade on the jugular with the shootings that were stopped, I would suggest that we have guns for teachers and that each one gets 160 hours of training, which is the same that the police get. You could ask any parent whose child was shot at these horrible school shootings, do they wish that the teacher who was huddled behind the door before the bullets came flying in the room had a gun so she or he could have the option of using it to defend himself or herself and the little tiny children? Now, if you want, this teacher doesn't have to do it. They can have a holster with a gun on one side and an eraser on the other. And if they don't want to use the gun, they can throw an eraser at the killer and see how that works. But I think the time has come for serious consideration. When I was a little girl, I went to Congress. I was 10 years old with my nanny and my great-grandmother. And we were sitting up in the spectators gallery, and there was a lovely woman who stood up with 2 men, and they just started shooting congressmen in Congress. I saw this. You want to think of what a panic is like? I know what that is like. Insanity.
Thank you, Sunny.
Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how to answer that at the at the city level with those very high profile national issues. I can talk about voting rights and integrity of of the process. Our city government. I mean, I've been in 7 years. I mean, the amount of oversight, the integrity that the Brown Act is monitored and controlled. Just for us volunteers to be here, that we were under the same guidelines as the governor as running for a governor in terms of voting integrity, and I'm very glad we have a city that puts all that in place. On those other issues, that's not a city council issue to come up. I believe those are national politics now.
Thank you. Jeanne?
I agree with Tom. Those are actually state and national issues, and they're not things that we would be dealing with here at a city level. However, I do have opinions on them. The gun rights, that was given to us by the Second Amendment. That's not going to change. However, we can have gun control, and the state of California has some of the best gun controls in the country. Unfortunately, gun control laws do not prevent criminals from carrying around a weapon every day. So, what do you do to defend yourself? Carry pepper spray, I don't know. That's a personal choice. Abortion, again, everybody has a different opinion on abortion. Even people that are devout Christians, there's pro-lifers, and then there's those that say, no, there should be exception. So, we need to leave that to the state legislators and let them, I think they've come up with kind of a halfway in the middle, decent plan for us to vote on. Voting rights. I do have some strong opinions on voting rights, and that is because there is a perception out there that elections are not fair. And in every other country, people are required to show identification. And how difficult is that to have someone show an ID card when they want to vote? It avoids fraud.
Thank you. Betsy?
So this question makes me really appreciate that we are running for a nonpartisan office. We are all representing all of Piedmont, regardless of how we're registered to vote at the state and the national level. So I just want to point that out to folks. I also think we have enough issues on our plate locally that we don't need to necessarily expand that into state and national issues. So I appreciate the things the other candidates have said, but I would like to keep this forum focused on the local issues. And I would be happy to talk about public safety. I'd be happy to talk about the fact that the city council just banned the sale of flavored tobacco. I would be happy to talk about the juvenile liaison officer that we have kind of on call to respond to the school district when they need help and need to, call 911. I'd love to talk about the increased services for mental health, both through the Student Wellness Center at the schools, but also the training that our police department is getting in the mental health realm. There are so many things we are doing here locally that do not answer that question specifically, but I think are the things that we should be focused on here. Thank you.
Jennifer, same question.
Thank you. I have a slightly different perspective on this. I do agree that these are not issues that would likely become before the city council, but I do think that the council members and our community members play a big role in these issues. The gun control, both at the school board and the city, we had someone come in and talk to us about the Brady Act and gun safety that impacts all of us. So that is a really important issue that we would love to educate the community on about how to keep guns safely. The issue of voting rights, again, affects us all. We're fortunate to not have some of the issues come up, but I do know that there are community members who are actively engaged in the region and outside of the state on those kinds of issues. So I think Piedmonters are active and engaged on these issues, even if they aren't issues that would specifically come before city council.
Thank you. The next question, well, I think that's probably this will be the last question. I'm on the fence, but I will do one more question. Can you, what can you do to enhance the lives of all Piedmont residents? This question is for you, Tom.
As a city council member. One thing let's see, I'm thinking about how to answer that. That's such a wide open question. One thing I will bring too is that, I think in my years on the planning commission, I think I bring consensus. I bring transparency. I think in all that process, that openness too. I think that that process of city government and of transparency and openness, I think that will make that will improve all decision, for the decision-making part of the role. For improving lives, I think, the lives that, I can't wait for the pool to open. I was talking to some neighbors about, they, with, younger kids, they're looking for more activities for their kids. I said, well, just wait a while, that pool is going to be open and, it's going to be more than just a pool. Just wait for that. I think also, we talk about things like the climate action plan. And I mean, that's something too, that's going to improve the lives that work for, things like reach codes and limiting our carbon footprint. That's going to enhance lives, for not just us and children, but grandchildren too. So there are, time's up.
Thank you. Yes. Jeanne.
That's a tough question to answer, but one, I think the pool is going to enhance a lot of lives. The children will have a place to go. It'll be a place to hang out, so they don't have to hang out in the park. The other thing we could do is we could add additional sports to our recreation program. One that I know my grandchildren are very interested in is archery. It's a non-violent sport and it can be very competitive. And I think it would be a very healthy sport to introduce to the city. And I think one of the things that people really want or are feeling that's not happening right now is that some of the voices are being heard through city council meetings, or being listened to, but not necessarily heard. And so I would like to make sure that we take a more active approach to when speakers come to the city council meetings, that we actually hear what they're having to say. And I think that in making sure that everybody in the city feels that they have a stake in what goes on in the city will make them happier residents.
Thank you. Betsy?
Yeah, well, I think most of you know, or if you don't know, I love all things recreation. So yay pool, yay pickleball. I mean, anything we can do to get people outside, kind of off their screens, interacting with one another, playing, any kind of community event. I walked by the movie night in the park after having gone to the new family reception, and it just gave me chills to see, hundreds of people sort of spread out in Piedmont Park on blankets, all watching a movie together. I mean, it was just those community events are really the best of Piedmont. So I also want to talk a little bit about transparency, because I do think that is something that we could do to work on to improve how we communicate, the city council communicates, and how we receive communication. We can always improve. And, I would encourage those who want to be involved, not only to come to our meetings, but also to volunteer for our city commissions and committees. I mean, it was really fun during the pandemic when we were impaneling the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee. We had 39 applicants. I mean, it was awesome. So I know the city is always looking for ways to push out information through emails, through the website, through our social media. But we have hired a new of our first actually city communications program manager. And I think she is going to help us figure out how to better connect and, to Jeanne's point, open up lines of communication so that folks not only feel heard, but that they are heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer?
I think improving community members' lives really rests in the quality of relationships. And I think as council members, it's our job, it's our duty to try to solve the problems for community members so that they can enjoy the relationships in their lives. And so I do strongly believe that community engagement, having one of the comments that I've continuously heard is the need for community engagement outside of chambers. And I think that sense of I can talk to the people who are making decisions on my behalf, and that they are hearing me is important. And so I certainly feel like if I were to be elected, that is something that I would really like to work with our communications team on. How do we ensure that our community members are able to access us and staff outside of chambers, and to continue to really just solve problems. I think people are happy when they don't feel like they have to tune in. So that would be one of my goals.
Thank you. And Sunny, one question, please.
No city or country is rich enough to afford poverty. I talked in October of 2019, you can look it up, to the city council, and I told them about how Queen Victoria's husband died in a house with 1,000 rooms because of lice, which had infected him with typhus. I took 2 months off to spend with homeless people to get a better feeling of how bad things were. And I'd like to show you this picture right here. This picture is pretty much what it looks like in the city of Oakland, in certain places, less than half a mile from where Piedmont is. And this is a picture of the death camps in Germany. And poor little Anne Frank died from typhus, the same as Prince Albert. So if there are areas of poverty, people who are rich aren't even safe. We have to take care of the basic needs of everybody, whether they are in Puerto Rico right now with their terrible challenges with the storm, or an area in Africa that needs help, or an area in Vietnam needs are taken care of, or none of us can feel safe or healthy.
Thank you. And that concludes the question and answer portion of tonight's forum. We will move to closing statements. Jeanne, you will go first, as you are next in line. You have 1 minute, please.
Okay. First, I want to thank everybody that has participated tonight and has come, spent the last hour and a half listening to us. And I hope we all had wonderful things to say that resonated with you. The purpose of a city council is it's a nonpartisan organization, and we're an extension of our residents and our constituents. And we have to listen, we have to listen, we have to hear, and we have to take everybody's opinions into consideration. If I am selected as a city council person, I will promise that I will do that. Piedmont is a unique city. It's a special city. And I think we should work to keep it that way and to make strides to improve. Thank you.
Betsy.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters, to my fellow candidates, and to those watching this forum. Many people have asked me why I'm running for a second term, and there are 3 main reasons. As I mentioned in my opening statement, there are important projects in the works that I'd like to see to fruition, including the pool and the long overdue police and fire department upgrades. Secondly, our city has an amazing senior management team, including Chief Bowers, Chief Brannigan, and Recreation Director Shelley Putzer. We relied on them heavily during the pandemic, and they delivered. They kept our community on track. I would like to continue to support them, as well as our other department heads and our amazing staff and our community as a whole, as we seek to hire a new city administrator. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, what makes Piedmont a special place is our willingness to contribute our time and our talents as volunteers towards building community. There will always be more work to be done. There will always be ways to improve, but I am motivated and committed to collaborating with you in support of the place we all call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I want to again thank the league, my fellow candidates, and the voters tuning in tonight. My hope is that you learned something meaningful about me that will help you as you continue to evaluate who you will choose to represent the city. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to serve, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. Sunny.
How blessed we are, aren't we? We have everything that the world generally yearns to have, but only those that have it realize that the things themselves are not that important. It's the love and relationships. But sometimes you've got to have a lot of stuff before this sinks in. I want to say one thing I did for the city already after the loss of my dear Sunday school teacher and her daughter was to promote cameras at the entrances and exits of Piedmont. And that, with the license plate readers, has been successful nearly every week in stopping someone that came into the city with either weapons or warrants out for their arrest for crimes they had done in other places. I'd like an opportunity to continue helping with Piedmont. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tom.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this candidates forum. And thank you to the other candidates for your service and your commitment to our city. And thanks to all the folks, that are watching tonight. Our community is so engaged because we all share a love for our town. I want to put my 3 decades of experience as an architect to work for Piedmont on issues surrounding housing, updating our fire and police stations, and getting our pool constructed. And I'll approach these issues by listening first, by asking questions, by reading every letter, working collaboratively with staff, council members, and our community to make decisions transparently and always with the best interest of Piedmont front and center. That's been my approach through my service on the Planning Commission, and I'll continue that approach if I'm fortunate to serve on your Piedmont City Council. I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to our candidates, and thank you to our audience participants and your interest in making informed choices. There is a 2-question poll that we hope you can fill out that will show up on your screen for those watching. And there's also a single question that will pop up when you log out of this webinar. Your local leagues also participate in Voters Edge, which is an online collection of candidate information. We encourage you to view the candidates' resumes, platforms, and positions there. That web address is votersedge.org and is on the screen. We will also be hosting additional forums for local candidates who will be on your ballot. Please visit our league's website at lwvpiedmont.org to find information about these upcoming forums, including the upcoming forum next week for the Piedmont Unified School District. Some other just points of to note, you can still register to vote up until November 1st if you haven't done so already, and ballots will begin to be mailed out on October 10th. You can vote in person, by mail, or place your ballot in an official Alameda County ballot drop box. In Piedmont, that's located on Highland Way and Mountain Avenue. And please remember to cast your ballot on or before 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 8th. I also want to thank and acknowledge Jennifer Trainer, our voter service chair, for her hard work in organizing this forum and the upcoming Piedmont Unified School District Board of Education candidate forum that's to be held on September 29th. I want to thank Laurel Plimier, our Piedmont League of Women Voters president, not only for her leadership, but also for the many other hats that she wears, including as the league's publicist, webmaster, tonight's timekeeper, and overall master of ceremonies. And we really appreciate all that you do, Laurel. And finally, I would like to thank the City of Piedmont and KCOM, especially Kenya Davis and John Tulloch, for helping provide this important educational event to the people of Piedmont through KCOM. And once again, thank you all to our candidates this evening, and good night to everyone.